Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi everybody, welcome back. Today's video is one I'm still putting out. I think I'm probably about done, but I am still doing like best of the year for 2024. I just find it interesting to look back and see categories of books. So today I have for you my top 10 romances of 2024. So the only thing is that I did do my best books of the year, which is my top 15, all genres, and there were more romances than other genres in there. I mostly read romance, fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi, and a little bit of YA, but mostly romance, and then fantasy right below that. So, however, I am not going to be mentioning the books that I already mentioned in that video. So, to hear my best of the best romances, along with a few other genres of books, I will have that video linked down below, my best books of 2024, but I will just list the romances that I mentioned in there that I'm not going to be talking about here. So, Drinker of Ink was my all-time favorite book of the year. Contemporary romance, absolutely fantastic. The Finest Print by Aaron Langston. When the Moon Hatched, The Marquis Who Mustn't, Darius, The Beast Takes a Bride, Adjacent But Only Just, and Unsteady. So that was 8 of my top 15 were romance. And this one is a romance, but it's like a YA romance too, so I'm going to include that in here, and it's Night of Cake and Puppets. So 9 of my top 15 were romances, so this is kind of like the top 20. But these were some really great books, really great romances that I wanted to mention and highlight because I feel like I don't talk about them enough, because I feel like everyone does this. They talk about like their favorite books. I definitely do this a lot. Maybe I'm the only one. So anyway, let's get into the video. Thank you for listening to that rambly opening. So the first book that I want to talk about is by an author who had 2 releases last year, and I had her other book on my top 15. So this book is My Season of Scandal by Julia Long. Julia Long is one of my favorite authors. I love her historical romances so much. This series, The Palace of Rogues, is pure serotonin. It is so perfect for historical romance. Great banter, really swoony moments, really fun side characters. Like, literally, this has every single thing that I want in a historical romance in this series, and I have truly loved every single book in this. So this is about our young heroine who is desperately needing to find a husband. She needs to find a match, so she is finally having her season and coming out. She ends up staying at the Palace of Rogues, which is where the story really centers, in that little inn. And she's, you know, sort of being sponsored by a woman who's going to have her coming out season. Now, her father is about to pass away, she feels like, and so he feels this urgency to get her married off. She really hopes that she can find somebody for love, and it kind of ends up into this race so that she can find someone so her dad can feel peace before she passes away. She ends up meeting a man who is in the House of Lords. He's a very powerful man, a very rakish man who can have whatever woman he desires, and he often does. And he is not known for love or settling down at all. And the two of them meet. There is an age gap. He is quite a bit older than her. And you can immediately tell that they both are feeling something that is sparks. And the thing that I really love about Julia Long is that she never, ever strays into territory that is overly focusing on the physical to describe their chemistry or their physical attraction. Like, I think something that I've talked about a lot that is a big complaint of mine is that a lot of times contemporary romance authors, they do that. They very lewdly and grossly describe how bodies are responding to another when they see somebody. And I just find that to be just so tired and boring, and it doesn't describe romance to me. It doesn't really increase the feelings of physical attraction or chemistry or desire. It just is like, to me, it feels like a man wrote it, and I'm just sort of like, why are we doing this? Anyway, Julia Long does not do that. While she still does have a lot of steam in her books and a lot of focus on their chemistry, which is very palpable, I really love how she does that. So I loved watching these two fall in love. It was a very gradual descent into love, and I just thought it was fantastic and so charming. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is Broken Whispers. This is a contemporary romance. This is a mafia romance where it's the Italian and the Russian mafia are going to have an alliance, and the only way they're going to do that is if they have an arranged marriage, right? So I believe it's the Italian mafia princess, who is a ballerina, who is going to agree to marry the Russian mafia, like, scarred hero. He's kind of like a beast. So it's a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which never gets old for me. Literally never gets old. And I just absolutely adored how sweet this romance was. I loved watching the way that they fell in love. I loved watching how they developed feelings for one another. I feel like this was just a perfect mafia romance that doesn't feel dark in the relationship at all. I just loved it. I think that a lot of times, again, this is a genre that can kind of lean into stereotypes or go a little too hard for my personal taste. And this author never did that. Like, there was a lot of nuance and subtlety in the building and developing romance, and I just loved it so much. It was so good. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is In the Details by Julia Wolfe. So Julia Wolfe was a new author to me in 2024. I ended up reading 3 books by her, and this one was my favorite personally. I just loved how we have a little bit of an older heroine who has a young daughter. She is also a little bit plus size, a little curvy. She's a very strong and powerful businesswoman who kind of heads up her family's business, like a big business, and then she is such a powerful, strong woman that she decides that she needs a man to take the reins in the bedroom, and so she ends up meeting this guy at a biker bar where they had a one-night stand, and then they continuously end up running into each other and meeting each other in that bar. They have a great one night, and then they move on with their life. Well, lo and behold, our hero, who is the man she's been meeting at the bar and having their one-night stands, he ends up seeing her at work. His company is going to try and do a deal with her company, and all of a sudden they're thrown into this forced proximity, this working relationship of trying to get the two companies to coexist. And I just absolutely loved watching this romance. I loved how he fell for her so fast and quick, and how hard he fell for her. Like, he was smitten with her, and he was just the right amount of alpha hero and tender and sweet, and I just loved it. I loved watching him with her little girl. I just adored it. I thought it was super fun and very sweet and just a great time. Okay, the next one is one that has been on many people's best books of the year, and it had to be in my top romances, and it is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Abby Jimenez is such an excellent writer. I love how she writes her romances. I think she is just a breath of fresh air in the contemporary romance world. I love her humor. I love her banter. I think her stories are very unique, and for me, she really does a great job of not keeping things too light, but also not getting things too heavy. She has enough heavy thematic type of content in there to get you really feeling deep emotions and understanding the character's struggles without heading into melodramatic territory or something that feels over the top. Like, she knows exactly how to nail that just perfectly. I really loved watching this romance. I thought it was so fun. I love the whole concept of it, which is basically our hero who has kind of become like a Reddit star for writing a Reddit post about how he feels like he's cursed in his love life, because every time he breaks up with a girl, then the next person they end up with, they end up marrying, and that's their soulmate. So the heroine kind of messages him on Reddit, I believe, maybe somewhere else, because she saw that post and she was like, hey, I'm having some bad luck too. What if we date each other, break up, and then we will break our curse, and the next person we marry will be our soulmate? And I just thought it was super fun. She's a traveling nurse. There's sparks in chemistry from the get-go. This was just so much fun. I just loved this book. Okay, the next one is a fantasy romance, and it is House of Bane and Blood. This one was so good, you guys, because of the romance. Like, this book reminds me a lot of The Prince of Broadway by Joanna Shupe, but in a fantasy setting. This feels very, like, Gilded Age, steampunky. The fantasy world building in here is extremely reminiscent of the Grishaverse, where you have, like, different categories of people and powers, and so that felt very familiar. I think that the time period and the writing style didn't make it feel super derivative of the Grishaverse, but it's very clearly that that's something that it's similar to. And I just loved how we have a young heroine who needs to marry somebody she doesn't want to marry to save her family from financial ruin, and in walks our hero, Nico, who is essentially like Devil from Wicked and the Wallflower, that type of hero, like Peaky Blinders type, right? Take control, take charge. He's going to handle the situation, and he does with everything when it comes to his woman. Like, I just adore that type of hero so much, and I love their romance. I thought it was great. So this one had to be on my list because it was just fantastic. I thought about this book for months and months after I read it. Okay, the next one is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I love this new series of hers. I think it's so good. I love it. I love Elsie's writing style. It's very fresh. It's very compelling. She does a really good job of getting you invested in the characters. I just had a ton of fun with this. This is a country star singer heroine who has gotten some bad press and she kind of needs to retreat. And as she does that, she ends up near by her, I think, is it her recording agent? It's the hero from the first book. I think he's a record company or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but she ends up around there, and it is the heroine from the first book. Her brother is the hero in this one. So he's a single dad. He has 2 kids. He is a horse trainer. So you get a small town single dad cowboy romance, and I just really, really liked this. I think that the thing that really made me enjoy this a lot was that the heroine starts out as someone who is very predictably stupid as a young heroine, and you're just sort of like, why are we doing this? Why are we writing a character like this again? And I really enjoyed watching her growth specifically and how she changed, and I loved seeing the hero like fall for her. It was great. I loved this one a lot. Okay, now the next one is another cowboy romance that I read, Alive and Wells. This one was beautiful. I was kind of taken off guard with this one because I wasn't expecting this to go as deep and lovely as it did. I really like books that deal with some type of traumatic thing happening to the heroine in a previous relationship where she kind of has to escape and then live her own life and, you know, get out on her own for the first time from underneath that man's control. And that's exactly what happened here. We have, she's married, and for the first time her husband physically abuses her. She's been planning to leave for a long time, so she finally has the courage to go ahead and do so now that he has hurt her. And she takes off into the night, meets this woman she's been talking to on a message board for domestic violence survivors, and gets a job where this woman works at a ranch, basically as like doing cooking and cleaning and things like that. And when she is there, she ends up meeting the boss. I think he is like the ranch manager or something like that. And he is immediately taken with her. He's like, wow, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's clever, she's gonna be trouble for these boys. And he doesn't really want her to work there. So there's a little tiny bit of antagonism there, fueled, of course, by his attraction to her. So I loved this. I loved watching them fall in love. I loved that he was a great big old softie. And I just thought this was beautifully done. And it was very compelling. Like, I couldn't stop listening to it when I started it. Okay, the next one is another small town romance. It is Sunlight by Devney Perry. Devney Perry oftentimes can be a little bit of a hit or miss author for me. I didn't particularly love, I think it was Indigo Ridge, the series right before this one. I thought it was just okay. This series I have really enjoyed, and especially this one. I love this one so much. This is a small town romance. It's the second book in a series, and we have our heroine who has just gotten a job as manager at this ranch and hotel type of thing. She ends up meeting our hero at a grocery store one night when he's like trying to save her and stand up for her so she can take her grocery cart and walk it to her apartment. And she's struck with him and taken with him, and he is with her as well. The next day she shows up to work to realize that he is her boss, so of course nothing can happen there. But of course it does. There were some surprises in this book. There were some really beautiful reveals. There was an absolutely beautiful slow building romance in here, and I loved it. This was one of Devney Perry's best ones in recent years for me. Okay, the next one is by one of my favorite authors, Ana Huang, and it is The Striker. I really enjoyed this one. I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to feel about it, because it's a sports romance, and this is the first sports romance I've read from Ana Huang. I think this may be the first one she's written. I'm not entirely sure. I think so. And I oftentimes equate sports romances with new adult, and that can be a difficult book for me because it ends up feeling a little bit immature. I just feel too far removed from 19 and 20-year-olds to really get into there. Anyway, this is not a new adult romance. He is a world-class soccer athlete for, I believe, England or something like that. And he is needing to train and to rehab with a ballerina. So him and one of his fellow players, who he's like enemies with, who actually ends up being the heroine's brother, go to learn ballet. And our heroine, of course, is the ballerina. She deals with chronic pain. She has had an injury, and she is very much trying to keep professional boundaries between the two of them, but of course they crumble and cave. And as is typical for Ana Huang, for me, this book was very sweet and very swoony, and it had just the right amount of tension that I love, and I just had the best time reading this book. Okay, the next one is Hexed by Emily McEntire. Now, I'm very surprised that I put this on my best romances of the year, because I've only read one other book from this author and I didn't care for it at all and it was Hooked, but I absolutely loved this. This is part of her series that is like standalones that are based on Disney characters, but it's contemporary. So this one is sort of a take on Ursula, and she is kind of like an assassin for, I think it's her uncle. Her cousin is Ariel, the Ariel character in here. So she's essentially working for King Triton, who has her go and like finish people off all the time. And she ends up one day seeing this man who washed up on the shore, which is the Eric character, our hero in the book. And she wants to take care of him, but Ariel gets to him first. The Ariel and the Eric character enter into a relationship, and the Ursula character, Vanessa, she ends up very like conflicted about that because she felt a call to him, and you know, she never got to have that chance even though she was the one who found him and saved him. So time passes and things happen and they end up meeting in the future. And this book had such excellent tension and chemistry. Like, the tension between these two was so good. This felt like one of the best slow build romances that I've read in a long time, and I just loved it. I thought this was so much fun. I had the best time reading it. I want to reread it, actually. It was fabulous. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so that's actually 10, but I'm going to include one more. So this is actually my top 11, and this is Lips Like Sugar by Jess K Hardy. So this is a contemporary romance, and she's kind of famous for doing Gen X romances. So the characters in here, I think she is in her late 40s and he's in his early 50s, and he is sort of a ex-alternate, well, actually I think he's still playing, like an alt rocker type of guy. And she is a single mom to a teenage boy who's kind of at that stage where he doesn't really want to do anything, have anything to do with mom. She's taking care of her mother, who is, you know, kind of succumbing to dementia, and she's trying to run her small business bakery all at the same time. So she ends up seeing the guy that she broke up with. I believe it was her husband. Was it her? Yes, I think it was her ex-husband. And he's with someone new, and she's kind of feeling like, oh no, you know? And so she sees this big, beautiful alt rocker guy, and she kind of just makes a move on him and is like, hey, can you pretend that we're like together? And he's like into it, and he is so into her. And that's something that I love about this book, is I love that we have an older hero and an older heroine instead of like a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old. Like, please, thank you, age appropriateness, right? But I love how he was so into her. He was completely gone for her, found her just to be incredibly attractive and desirable, and just like, he was smitten for her, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I think it was also really effective because she had so much going on in her life, and she came out of a bad relationship, and he just wanted to take care of her and love her and worship her, and like, it's my catnip. It is my catnip. I love that so much. So anyway, there you have it. Those are my top 11 romances of 2024. I loved all these books. I highly recommend them, and I'm sure that you would love them too. So let me know what one of your favorite romances was in 2024, and thank you so much for watching my video this time, my friends. I appreciate all of you so much. If you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a pink heart, and I will see y'all in my next video.